In this video, we're going to work on detailing the rest of the drawing. And by detailing, we mean detailing with different annotations. In a perfect world, when we model three-dimensionally, as we've been doing, we would have very limited, if not any, uh, annotations or lines that would be used for symbolic purposes only. We are not to that point, and definitely not for this class. So the next part that we are going to do is we start looking at our floor plan is we are going to start putting in things like our lines, our call outs for our rooms. These lines right here actually represent what's going on the ceiling. Traditionally in plans, before we had the capability of making so many sheets, a set of residential drawings would never have a reflected ceiling plan. And so in some cases, especially on a building like such, we would show some representation of what was happening on the ceiling. So you can see over here in bedroom number one, we have this little tray ceiling look that's happening. In the great room area, we've got this vaulted ceiling. And then this vaulted ceiling, as you look, goes back beyond there. And that's because essentially we have kind of a shelf on the wall. If we were to go back to sheet 400, let me go there really quickly. Into our interior elevations, what you'll see is up above the walls, we have this framing where we have this little shelf, and that area up there insets about 2 feet. And looking on the other wall towards that bedroom area, we have the same thing, a little shelf area, and then it kind of recesses back in there. So that's what's going on in that area right there. So let me go back to our main level floor plan. Should be sheet 200. So we're going to work on putting those things in there, as well as we're going to put in dimensions, and we're also going to put in our door and window tags. In fact, we're going to start with the door and window tags right now. So let me go back to my Revit file. So it looks pretty plain right now at this point. And really quickly while you're doing that, I'm going to drag this to my other screen so I can have both of these opened at the same time. So when we have a drawing, we have doors and windows, and we need to have some type of mark or call out. We call those tags. So all those tags do typically is it references us to some type of a schedule in the plan, in our case a door or window schedule, that we would have the finite details of what each of those things would represent. So depending on the template that you have loaded in, this template we have should not have the tags coming in, but that's actually fairly simple to fix. So if you haven't done so already, select the Annotate tab, and on the ribbon, come over here. It's just a little bit past half, and we're going to see a tag by category or tag all. I'm going to go ahead and select tag all, and that should bring up a dialog box. And what we're going to do right here is we're going to say, we're going to check mark our door tags, and we're going to check mark our window tags. And once we say that, I'm just going to go ahead and say okay. If you hit apply, it'll show it without closing out the dialog box. But if you know you have what you need and you just want to move forward and make the box disappear, when you click OK, it both applies it and the dialog box goes away. But now that we've done that, what you'll see is that we now have these, what in Revit they call tags, but it's basically just the marks that reference what each window is. So let me bring back our plan here just for a second. So what you'll notice here is we've got window type A. We've got this door is actually labeled as door 114, and then we got window type B. So in this particular plan, we're making an actual distinction in how we're using the marks. Doors are labeled numerically, and our windows are being called out using a letter of the alphabet. So what we're going to do now is we want to come back here and we want to relabel all of our door and window tags to match what we have on the plan. So to do that, that's actually not too difficult. I'm going to come here to bedroom number 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click once onto that mark. And then I'm going to click again in the, okay, I had to do it 3 times. I'm going to back out there. 1, 2, okay, I just didn't get it the second time. So you may have to play around with it a little bit, but once you are able to activate that, we're going to go in here and I'm just going to type in the letter A. And then I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to get a warning box that comes up, and it's going to say you're changing a type parameter. This could affect many elements. It's not going to affect anything for what we're doing, so we're just going to go ahead and say yes. So we got our window A taken care of. Now this tag right here is not where I want it to be. I want it actually in the center of the door. So I'm going to just click on here once, and you'll see the little like 2 arrows that intersect. If you hover over that, you can see the little box that says drag. I'm going to click the left mouse button, and while holding down, you can see that I can move that to the location that I choose. So I like that tag basically right there in the center. That tag is not the correct number, so I'm going to activate that text inside of there. I'm going to type in door number 114. So moving along around the exterior of the house, we're going to come to this window, and this is window type B. Again, we'll keep getting those warning messages. Just go ahead and say okay and accept that. Okay, let's come around here to this front window. I want to show you something here. We're going to go ahead and click and activate this. This is window type C. So we're going to go ahead and just change that. And what I want you to note is when we come down here, this window down here is the exact same window, and you'll notice that when we change the marker, the type, and the tag, it changed there as well. We also have that same window that is occurring over here in the garage. So if you have multiple windows, as far as the family type that you've used, you only have to change those tags once and you're good to go. When they come back here to the front door, I'm going to actually move this. I want my tag a little bit in like that, and then I'm going to go ahead and change that to door number 101. Same thing here. Let's just see what we have going here. I'm going to come around on the garage, and so that's door number 115. So again, I'm going to highlight that, get the little grab portion, move that out, activate the text, and you can go ahead and change that door number. So let's just keep going around here in the garage door. That is door number 104. And it looks like on the drawing, I had actually moved that inside just a little bit. I'm going to go just a little bit more. Okay, so you can kind of get this sense here. I'm just going to keep working along here and changing the rest of my windows. I believe that's the last of the windows. So once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and let's just go into the inside of the house. Now you look this little opening that we have going into the shower area. I'm going to go ahead. I don't want that there, so I'm going to highlight that. I'm just going to simply hit delete, and the tag will go away. Okay, so come up here, and we're going to change this to door number 112. Now, one of the things as I'm just doing this, I'll explain that oftentimes dealing with doors, and this would be more indicative of, let's say, a commercial building. The door number, when we use, let's say, starting with 100, the first letter, or excuse me, the first number of that sequence oftentimes will represent the level you're on. So if you had a 3-story building, then I would expect doors to be labeled 201, 202 if it was the third level, 301, 302, so on and so forth. So that's actually a very important thing in a building. If you don't realize this, that buildings typically have some type of numbering system that represents the floor that you're on. If you've ever been like in a hotel and you're in room 350, for example, 350, you're going to be on the third floor. So that's a pretty common convention in terms of how we label room numbers as well as like door numbers. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going through this project and don't have too many left to do on here. So let's come up here to this closet door. Whoops. I need to select that, and I'm going to pull that in just a little bit. Change that to door number 108. Got door number 108, 105, 106, 1. I'm looking for door. I'm missing a door mark right there. I don't know where that is, and I'm not sure which number that should be. I'm just looking to see if there's anything I see out of sequence there. Maybe it should be door number. I'm looking for door number 103. I don't see door number 103. I was looking back on the plan. So just for kicks, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to label this door 103. If I find out that is incorrect, I'll change it. Per the plan, that's door 107. This door mark is 108. Okay, that is not door number 108, and you can see as I did that, it did give me an error. So I will need to change that to 109. So that's actually a good thing on the door. Notice that is different than the windows. The windows, you can have the same mark, but the doors, not the same way. And that's actually a good thing. Okay, so we are here at door number 106. We are going to come right here, and I'm going to pull this. I'm going to leave it just how it is. Don't have a lot of room right there. There's door number 105. And look at that. I missed a door in one of our videos. So not a big deal. I'm going to come back up here to architecture and select door. And I'm going to select I'm just going to select this 36. I know it says an interior door there. I don't think we ever really created an exterior door, but that'll be basically what we want. I'm going to change my swing. And as soon as that refreshes, I should have a door there, but I don't have a door tag. So I'm actually going to try something here. I'm going to go select this door tag. I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to bring it up over here. That's interesting. It's let me, if I hold the shift key down, it'll actually unlock that and let me drag it in that direction. So let's go ahead and put that right there. Since when I added that door, it didn't add the tag. That's actually interesting. I thought it would have. Once that comes up, I'm going to see if I can change that to door number 102. And in theory, yeah, that worked out just fine. So perfect. So that missing door we've got in there, we've got there at 102. So there was no door 103, so apparently that was the correct, or should have been the correct call out at that point. Okay, so once you have that done, all your doors and windows are now tagged. So the next thing let's do, let me bring the plan back over here. The next thing what I want to do is let's come in here and let's actually draw some of our symbolic lines that deal with our closet shelving, closet rod, our crawl space, our tray ceiling. For this assignment, let's just forego putting in this built-in Murphy bed cabinet. Those are just symbolic lines, and the reason they are symbolic lines is simply there was not a component that was pre-existing that I could actually go in and put that cabinet. And so that's one of the reasons, if you're trying to make money in producing drawings, sometimes you're just better off using some of the symbolic lines and what have you. So okay, so you can see right here also that I've taken the liberty, and in Bluebeam I've scaled some of this stuff, so you can see where I'm getting some of these dimensions from when I come back over here. Okay, so to start doing these annotations, I'm going to start with the tray ceiling in the master bedroom. So I'm going to go to annotate. I'm going to go to detail line. And once my detail line tool is loaded, I'm going to come over here and I want to switch that line, and I'm going to select the overhead line option. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to worry about getting things perfectly in the right location. In fact, instead of the line, I'm going to come up here to this rectangle tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, and while holding down on the left mouse button, I'm going to make, I guess you don't have to hold down on the left mouse button, and then you can click again. And that'll be an easiest way to make a rectangle with all of those different lines. So once I've done that, I'm going to just put some temporary, actually can go off a wall of wall faces, because that's how my measuring came off of Bluebeam. And I'm going to just simply come in here and I'm going to put, really don't want to do that off the window, some temporary dimensions in here. And then just like I taught you before, we will select the line that needs to be moved, and then we can come over to the dimension and we can just type in this case, I'm going to go 2'2". Same thing right here. We've got 2'2". Over here on this line, we've got 2'2". And it looks like I missed this one right here, which we will have 2'2". And then I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of those temporary dimensions once again. But I know that that symbology, or those symbolic lines, are now in the right place. So before we go out of this room, let's go ahead and let's come up here. We'll stay in annotate, and we're going to click on text. And we are going to have a couple of different text options. And we might need to define some of our own. I'm not sure yet. For now, I'm going to go ahead and just use the 3/32 of an inch. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a text box. Let me do that one more time. So I'm going to annotate. I'm going to go to text. And then I'm just going to drag a text box very similar to like Microsoft products. And then I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to type bedroom number 1. You'll notice up here we can do some different formatting if we want. I'm just going to let that be for right now. You can go back in, you can reselect the box. You can move it around more or less to where you want that located at. So the other thing, let me once again bring our drawing back over here. You'll notice that some of these other labels, the tray ceiling is much smaller. I'm going to say that's about half the font size. And if I'm looking again at what we had, we only had 1/4 and 3/32, and quarters is much bigger. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to text one more time, except this time I'm going to go to edit type. I'm going to duplicate. Again, you can see no matter where we're at in Revit, the way you duplicate things and make new different family types and different things is the same way. I'm going to change this to 3/64. So 3/32. Half that size would be 3/64. That's easily done in a fraction because you just double the denominator is how you know that is changed. And then once that's done, my text size here, I'm going to once again change that to 3/64. And we'll leave everything else the same and say okay. So once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and create another text box, and I'm going to go ahead and type in my tray ceiling label. And once again, once I get that there pretty close, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and I can start moving things around and just getting things somewhat close. Instead of recreating text box, I'm going to highlight this text box, come up here to my toolbar, click on copy, and then I'm just going to go click somewhere. I'm going to actually go right on that text box and just get it fairly close down to the opposite side of the room. That will be okay. I'm just going to do copy again. I'm just going to bring it out there, and then I'm going to use this. If you saw what I did, there's this upper right-hand side, this little rotate button. You can click on there holding the left mouse button down. You can rotate that. So I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees, take that over more or less where I want it in that position. I'm going to copy that one last time, and I'm going to take that over and get it fairly close to where I want it on the other side. So again, we're not placing anything as far as models go like we've done, but what this is doing is actually just representing the symbology of the ceiling that's happening in that bedroom. So let's take a look at the closet here really quick. So if you're looking at your plan, I'm not going to bring that up. You guys should have access to it. We have what appears to be a closet shelf, closet rod, and then a crawl space access. So I'm going to come up here to annotate, detail line. I'm going to leave my overhead line there for now. Again, I'm just going to really quickly just place some lines in here. I will move them to the correct location in a minute. So I'm going to get that one done. I'm going to come here and I'm going to go from my overhead to, I want to go from overhead to thin line. On that thin line, I'm going to just basically make that little horseshoe shape once again. So that's going to represent the shelf as far as the solid line, and the dotted line represents the closet rod that will be in there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and change over to hidden line or hidden, and then using my rectangle tool instead of a line, I'm just going to go ahead and drag that little crawl space access hole was what that's symbolizing. So once I've done that, let's go back and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a couple of dimensions again. These will be temporary. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a dimension from there to the back of the wall. And then I'm going to do another dimension between there and the rod. And this can get a little bit cluttered, but you can basically kind of mimic what I'm doing here. So I'm going to get it to all those points. So now I'm ready to move the shelf. So the shelf right here is going to come out 12 inches or 1 foot from the wall. And I'm going to make that happen on each of those walls. So we're good there. And then once we've done that, something looks a little bit off to me. Okay, so I didn't grab the right one. This line right here should be from that dimension line. There we go, that looks better. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back here. I know on the drawing that I produced, I had actually a 2-inch offset. I'm going to change that to a 1-inch offset. I got a little bit curious a couple of weeks back and actually started measuring some closets, and those are actually closer to 1-inch offsets, not 2. So I'm going to do that 1-inch. Look a little bit different than my the drawing that we're working off of, but there's nothing wrong with that. So just going through here, going to get rid of all those temporary dimensions. And then the last thing we have is we have a crawl space. And the crawl space, for the most part on a drawing like this is going to be pretty much just symbolic. It's not going to necessarily have measurements of where it's going to be placed. Usually when you do your floor layout with your floor joists and stuff, that would be somewhat detailed at that point. But what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to measure this really quick just for our purposes. So what I want to do is I want to come off of that wall, and we are 2 foot 5 inches. I'm going to come off of this wall and see if I can get that to snap. So that's 1 foot 1 inch. And then this is going to be a square box, which looks like it's about 28 by 28. So based off of that information, I'm just going to, again, I want to put this in here roughly, just, again, it's symbolic. It's not a total loss if it's not perfect, but I do want to get it somewhat where it needs to be. Again, you'll notice I'm using hidden lines here versus the overhead. Again, I like using the hidden lines when something's down low or below the cutting plane, whereas if I'm trying to represent something that's hidden above the cutting plane, then I want to go ahead and use those overhead lines. So hopefully this will finish saving here for me. And then we'll go ahead and I'm going to throw in the dimensions I need to. Just give this 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go and place that dimension. I want a dimension here. I want a dimension here. Pull that out that way, and then I want another dimension right to that point. So again, going off of what I pulled off of the drawings, that was 2 foot 5 inches. This is 2 foot 8 inches. This was off that wall 1 foot 1 inch. And then move this line, which should be that dimension, was 2 foot 8 inches. What did I do wrong here? I must have not keyed in the right dimension, so 2 foot 8 inches. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to go back here, get rid of those temporary dimension lines once again. So that should now be a little bit closer to how it should look. I'm noticing it does, it's a little bit different than what we have on our plan, but that's okay. Now I'm just going to, again, I don't like to recreate a bunch of text boxes. So you'll find that what I end up doing is I just tend to grab a text box, copy it, paste it, drag it into the general area that I want, and then I'm going to go on the inside of this and I'm going to just relabel this now to my crawl space access. Now the one last thing that, if I'm looking at this based on what we're seeing on the drawing, I'm actually going to drag that text box open bigger, and then once it's highlighted, you can see up here, I'm going to go ahead and do a center alignment, and that should be pretty centered in that box. Okay, so we're looking pretty good here. I think what I want to do next is, let me bring the drawing back over here. I want to focus on, okay, I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to come through here and I'm going to label my bathroom, my great room, my kitchen. And then once that's done, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to put my symbolic lines for the vaulted ceiling going all the way back to where those upper shelves will be framed. So again, don't like to recreate a lot of stuff, so I'm just going to copy and paste this bedroom label, and I'm just going to get it down here into the bathroom area, and then relabel that. And of course you can play with it wherever you need to. So I'm going to go ahead and copy one there, and I'm just going to really quickly copy something there, and then I'll worry about relabeling and moving this. The other thing that I actually haven't done is I actually like to center everything in there, and if I'd have done that to begin with bedroom 1, then I wouldn't have had to do that for all of them, because it would have automatically happened there. So looks like my great room labels somewhere in that area. So that will give us the great room, and then I'm gonna, let's see, this kitchen label needs to come back a little bit there. You know, I'm just gonna keep going on here for a second. I'm gonna copy, let's just get the rest of these labels done. So I'm gonna come in here and let's do the pantry. Now you'll notice that once you copy it, if it doesn't seem to want to go where it needs to, it's because it's kind of locked or snapped in there. Hold the shift key down and that will unlock it and allow you to drag it closer to where you want to be. So change that to entry. And then I'm actually going to go copy this bedroom one over here, because if I do that, then I only have to change that single number to bedroom 2. Okay, so there's all my labels. So let's come back here and let's put in our vaulted ceiling and some of the other symbolic lines. Let me bring the drawing back over here again. We're going to forego, in fact, I'll let you guys on your own if you choose to do this movable island. Again, that's just more a representation of more furniture at that point. And then I also want to put in some symbolic lines where this basically stairwell, where that spiral staircase is going up. So all of that's going to be done with hidden lines. And let me pull this out of the way. So I'm going to go to annotate, go to detail line. I need to change this back to my overhead, and I'm going to actually start right here. So this symbolic line should line up with both inside and outside a wall there. I actually did that long. I'm going to drag it short now because I couldn't tell if I was lined up or not. So that will actually take care of that. Next, what I want to do is, just looking at my drawing here, I'm going to go ahead and just I'm just going to throw some rough lines in here. So I've got this shelf one coming back this direction. It's coming, looks like over to here. And then from this drawing, we've got basically a line that comes from here and it's going to come back over there. And then finally, I'm going to wait and put the actual vault line in, because I need to find the center, and I'll find the center once I locate the edge of this shelf at that point. So again, I'm going to put in some temporary dimensions. So I measured this beforehand, and if I remember correctly, that was 2 foot off of the face of the wall. Once I get that, I really don't need that dimension in there. Let me go ahead and put that dimension again over here, which will be 2 foot. And it should be off it right there. Perfect. So the reason I waited to do the vault line at that point, assuming that this line and this overhead line there is in the correct position, my vault is exactly dead center this line. So if I go back to my detail line and I start just hovering over that line and going to the center, when you go to the center, you'll see that little triangle appear. So as soon as that triangle appears, that's the midpoint of the line. And so I'm going to snap there, and I'm going to now just snap that over to the other line. So the other thing I know is that this line and this line line up. So I'm going to go to Modify, use my Align tool, select the plane that I want to align to, and then select the line that needs to move. So that should be in the correct location. And then finally, if I did another really quick measurement because that measurement wasn't on the plan. And if I measure from that point to this wall, that measured 2 foot 4 inches. Now, again, this is all symbolic. I'll tell you right now, if I were to actually be building this, my truss system actually is more, it's the driving factor of where these shelves actually will end. And so it doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend a lot of time trying to get everything perfect when we're dealing with some of those items. So I am not, okay, I don't think I've set this one correctly. It's not looking right. And I don't ever remember putting a dimension there. So I'm going to put one right here. And that should actually be 2 foot 2 inches. Now that's looking more like what we have on the actual drawing. Okay, so that should be all of those lines that are symbolic. So we're just cruising right along here. What I would like to do now to finish this video is actually 2 more things. We need to put dimensions in there, but before we do dimensions also, I want to actually mark where our 2 steps are at. Okay. Now I'm not sure what quite happened over here because the step in the wall disappeared on me, even though we know that that step is occurring at this location. So I'm going to cheat the system here. I'm going to go to detail line, and then I'm going to go ahead and select a thin line, and I'm just going to essentially just put in a line right there. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go still, or I shouldn't say still, but I'm going to copy one of these trade ceilings, and let's bring that over. I'm having to hold my shift key down to get it somewhat located. And I'm going to change that description to step. And then once that's done, we'll go ahead and shorten that up. And I'm going to go ahead and just bingo. Now the other thing I'm going to do here, and I do this on occasion, I don't know if I've shown you anything like this at all, but I'm going to come up here to this command. It's called the mirror. So I'm going to select on that mirror, and this vault line is the midpoint. So if I click on there, what that's going to do, it's going to copy that step annotation, and it's going to put it here to the opposite side. So once I've done that, I'm just going to go ahead and move that in place. And I'm going to actually still put another line coming off of this step to that location. Okay, the other thing is while you're looking at the drawing here, you can see that we have some dimensions with some leaders on there. So TOP, top of plate. That is what those what that stands for. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with creating a text box. And I'm going to type in, actually, let me hit escape. I don't want to keep those changes. I'm going to hit my text box, and I'm going to change that back to the 3/32 text size. So now I'll drag that text box. I'm going to go ahead and type in TOP 109 foot 1 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to go ahead and drag that a little bit bigger and back. It's actually too big. I'll shorten that direction. Now to add the leader, what you're going to do is you're going to come up here to the ribbon, and you'll see that you have different types of leaders. You can do some that have an arc, or they can be straight. So you can add a leader to the left side or to the right side. In our case, we're going to want to do it to the right side. And once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and take that up there. And I'm going to go ahead and shorten that a little bit. So I've got another thing happening here, and that simply is that my leader line there has a dot and not an arrow. I'm going to go ahead and select that, and I'm going to go back and hit edit type. And I'm going to duplicate this. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to type in arrow at that point. And then down here on the leader overhead, I'm going to go back and I'm going to select the, I want the 30-degree, arrow filled 30-degree is what I want. I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now the reason I just didn't change that on the other, I know that I was using that on the foundation plan. So if I were to change that back right there, my foundation plan is also going to change. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that arrow somewhere on that side of the wall. So basically on this side of that step, the wall steps up to 109, 1 1/8 inch. Now to add the leader line, or the top of plate with the leader on the opposite side, select that leader line, and what I just showed you using that mirror function, go ahead and select that line that we put in to represent the step, and you'll see that that now mirrors it almost identical to what you see it on the drawing. And the only difference is we have a 1 foot step down, so we're just going to change that to 1 foot to 108 foot. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to select one, hold the control key down, select the other, and I'm going to mirror this again, going to my vaulted ceiling line because that's the center of the structure. You'll see that mirrors it over that direction. The only thing is we're not in the right place. As long as both are still appearing in blue, I can hover over the arrow, push the left mouse button down, and while it's being held down, I'm just going to move that over to where I want it to appear. The only thing that I'm seeing that I don't like completely is I'm a little bit close to that tag. So what do I want to move? I'm going to actually just pull the tag down a little bit just to give a little clearance. Okay, so that's one way that you can put those, the information in there to show what the elevations on each side of that step would be. Okay, so the final thing that we need to do as far as these annotations are is we need to go ahead and put in all of our dimension lines. So to do that, we're going to start on this back wall. And when you start doing dimension lines, you will have different tiers of dimensions. So for example, you'll see right here that we have 3 tiers of dimensions. And what typically happens when you dimension, we start on that lower tier and we will go from the outside of the wall, and then we will go to center of window, center of, or to the wall, center of door, so on and so forth. And then the next tier out, what we've got going on is we're eliminating the actual windows, and we're measuring from outside of wall to interior wall to interior wall, interior wall. Um, in fact, we don't go to interior wall, and that's next one. We go from that wall all the way out. And then we have the overall dimension. So to place those dimensions, we're going to come back up here. We've done this quite a bit so far. Select that dimension line. Now we want to make sure that when we're dimensioning that we're doing this to the face of core. And what that'll mean is we hover over there to look like it's hitting that wall inset just a little bit. That's because it's measuring from the face of stud, and this wall shows the building material in terms of sheeting and our finished material going outwards. So we're going to click right there. We'll come to the center of the window. We're going to come now to the edge of the wall. Traditionally, they used to dimension to the center of the wall, but in recent years, you'll see most plans going to the edge of an interior wall. I will tell you that having had some experience out framing, that my preference is actually when building to have it to the outside face of stud on an interior wall. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to go through each of those areas until you get the other outside wall, and then I'm just going to bring this up here, and I'm going to drop that string of dimensions. Now, if I look at my drawing right here, I can tell you that something happened that I did incorrect, and that is that my extension line I placed it on the wrong side of the wall. And so you can see I've got a 3.5-inch discrepancy on that dimension. And then it appears that I dimensioned on the other side of the wall there. That can be fixed fairly easily. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that dimension. And what I'm going to do right here is, if I remember which dot to hit, it's that center one. You can see if you click on that, you can actually change that witness line from the outside to the other outside to the center, and it can toggle back and forth. So I'm just going to change that over. You can see my dimensions now 14. I don't need to redo the whole dimension line. I'm going to go ahead and change the other dimension to the outside of the closet wall. And let me just double check the other two dimensions. And we have 5 foot 6 and 6 foot. So everything there looks as it should. So now we're going to go back and we're going to add the next string of dimensions, and I'm going to go from outside of wall to this wall, and then I'm going to come again to this wall here, and then I'm going to come to that wall. As you bring this second level of dimensions up, if you slowly go up like this, it'll actually snap to a predetermined distance above the first string of dimensions, and you can go ahead and click OK, and you will see that we now have some more dimensions. So something is still looking different on this than what mine is, and that is because I never measured to the center of the door. So again, I don't have to redo all of the dimension lines. I'm going to select this string of dimensions that I already created. And if you notice up here on the ribbon, you have Edit Witness Line. If I select that, it'll allow me to come back in here, and I'm going to come to the center of this large door, and I'm going to click there, and then I can go ahead and click out, and it's going to take that 14-foot dimension and split it now in the 7 foot, 7 foot, showing the center of the door. Okay, so the final dimension over here will be from outside a wall to outside a wall, which should be 40 foot. Okay, a couple just quick things to clean up. You notice that this witness line actually comes through our window mark. I'm going to highlight that dimension. You go to the end of that witness line, I can go ahead and move that up, and so it will clean it up and make it more readable. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing right there. Okay, so that'll be the first set of dimensions. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this over, and let's go ahead and do dimensions on the front of the house. And on the front of the house, we are going to we're not going to include the garage at this point. So we're going to come up here and we're going to go from outside of wall, center of window, and then from there we are going to go to outside of wall, to center of door, and then finally we are going to come to basically the outside of the common wall to the garage. And once we've done that, we're just going to bring that out to about this point. Okay, we'll do another set of dimensions. We're going to go from that point to this point. And then it looks like we're simply going to come all the way out. And then we'll do one final overall dimension. And just taking a quick look at the drawing, and it looks like that we are pretty good there. Okay, I'm going to come to the back side of the house here. We don't have any windows here, but I'm going to stay in the dimension mode. I'm going to take a dimension from these locations, and we will drop a line there. Looking at the plan, I think I actually have an extra dimension in there that I don't need, so I'm not going to put it there. I'm going to now do an overall dimension that goes the 24 feet. And then I'm going to take that out to the outside edge of the garage, and we'll take that to that point there. And then I want to do one last overall dimension, just like that. Okay, another couple of really quick things here. We've got a dimension that's shown that's from the inside of the wall here to the inside of the wall in that direction. So we'll put that in. This is in the shower area, and when you see dimensions like this, the purpose of them is because it's very important that we hit those inside dimensions. It also looks like we have some dimensions coming on this other side of the garage. So we'll start with this dimension, and we will go to the center of that bathroom window. Looks like we are to the inside wall, to the outside face of stud on the garage. Now the drawing doesn't show this, and I'm going to have you do this. We're going to go to the center of the door. That was one of the missing dimensions we had. That's how it should have been completed. To the center of the window, and then we'll come here to the outside of the wall. So I'm just going to drag that down, place that, and then we're going to come back and put our next layer, which goes from outside of the house wall to the outside of the garage wall, and then to the outside of the other garage wall. And then finally, we'll do one last overall dimension. So once again, we've got a couple of things we can clean up here where the witness line goes through our window and door tags. Okay, we're getting really close here, just a couple more dimensions. So we've got some interior dimensions. So we're going to come in here and we're going to place an interior dimension from so we're going to go from the inside of the wall to where the edge of the door opening is. And then we're going to go ahead and go to the outside of the wall and then to the outside of the wall. Okay, so you'll notice from the drawing we're working off of that there, it almost appears to me that there's a dimension that's over a dimension. I can't quite figure out why it is that way. So anyway, just go ahead and put the 2'7", 5'3", and the 4'0". We also have a dimension that is coming off of the inside. I'm just going to go back to that point of the wall to the edge, which should be 2'8". And then coming off of the other side, we have that other wing wall that comes from the inside to the edge, which should also be 2'8". There's a few dimensions like this one next to the refrigerator that was left there in air. We don't need to put that one in there. It's not relevant. But we do want to come over here to the fireplace, and we're going to come from the inside of the wall to the outside of the chase, and then clear to the other the outside of the other chase, and we'll drop that set of dimensions in. Coming out from the fireplace, you'll notice that the dimension's actually coming from the opposite side of the wall to the face of the fireplace chase. So we'll go ahead and place that in there. Okay, moving forward here. As we go along, I am seeing a few things that we've missed, like we had some overhead lines that need to be put in at that point. So we'll come back and do that in just a second. But we've got a dimension that needs to come from the outside front of the house to the front of that laundry closet, and then to the back side of the laundry closet. I had a hard time making that snap to that point. I'm not sure what the interference is. So I snapped to the center, and now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and activate that dimension line and see if I can use that center dot to move that into the right location. So sometimes you got to trick the system into doing what it needs to have done. I'm going to go ahead and move that a little bit. It wasn't quite in the position that I wanted it. Okay, we've got another dimension that is coming from what appears to be the outside of wall to the inside wall of the laundry closet, and then the outside wall of the pantry. So we can see that as we go through this, we start getting things, kind of clutters, what have you. But the information's got to be put in. All right, so actually one last thing I want to do is in this coat closet off the entryway. This was another place that we had a missing dimension when we were trying to build this from the other plan. So I want to come in here and I want to put a dimension right here. And you'll notice that because it's such a short dimension, it's kind of difficult to read. I'm going to activate that dimension, and you'll see there's a little dot below the actual foot and inches. I'm going to click on there, and I'm going to drag that, and you can actually drag that dimension out with basically a leader line that goes back. It makes that a little bit more legible. And then let's just go ahead and we will put one dimension that will go basically right there. I think the only thing I forgot now, I'm going to go back to my detail line and I'm going to select the overhead, and I want to put in those symbolic lines that create this area right there where the water heater is. Okay, so let's see what else we're missing here. So we are missing a couple of things, it looks like in the shower area here. And then we're also missing the symbolic lines for the spiral staircase. I'm going to let you guys try to do that on your own. And once you get to that point, this is where we are going to stop on the main level floor plan. And let me think here for a second. I will come back and we will input a building section and some interior elevation symbols and different things. I do want to show you how to do that, and then I'll show you how to put this onto the title block, and that will be essentially what it'll look like when you turn this floor plan in at a later time.